Yeah, when we looked into our sources, we saw that the concept of 10 and the division into 10 started way back in the times of Moses and Jethro. They actually started dividing the people of Israel into tens. Tens, fifties, hundreds, thousands. And really, it's a question that immediately comes up. Why do Moses and Jethro decide to divide the people into tens? What is it about this structure? Maybe just in a sentence, it was Jethro's advice to divide the people of Israel into tens. Yeah, he came to Moses and he said, I see you from dusk till dawn. Yeah, because Moses, he comes from above. What do you mean? Moses comes from a higher degree, higher than the rest of the nation. And therefore he influences the entire nation from above. And Jethro understands that the will to receive, that Jethro is a part of, he belongs to the power of Midian, the priest of Midian. Still, it's a part of the will to receive, of the klippah, the shell, the basic fundamental will to receive, and therefore he understands that what Moses wants to do is impossible unless it will fit the general process, yes, but only a small groups. The smallest possible group is a 10. And therefore he recommends Moses to divide the people into tens, hundreds. There were tens, 50s, hundreds, and so on. And that's it. Because in tens, it's possible to bring people closer in a short, visual, corporeal, tangible way, so they don't lose each other. Because we're the result of the influence of the upper light on the desire, as we said on our previous show. We're the manifestation of the 10 phases in which the upper light worked on the desire. And this is how we consist of 10 parts. 10 fingers, 10 this, 10 that, lots of tens. When I started studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, I studied the books of the Ramak, so he explains everything through that. 10 here, 10 there. It's very different from the Kabbalah of the Ari, since the Ari, he turns directly to the point. And the Ramak, he gives many examples of this world. Look, this is 10, and that's 10, and that's why it's 10 Sefirot. And the Ari, he explains it differently. He explains it from within the wisdom, that the light spreads from above, and how necessarily the light that works on the desire arranges it in 10 stages, no more and no less. One little question. You said that the smallest group are 10 people because there you can bring people closer together. You mentioned Jethro and Moses. From what I remember, the idea was that the smallest unit of 10 people will have one judge, meaning 10 people will have one judge. If they don't agree on something, they go to the minister of the 50s, then to the minister of the 100s, and eventually, if they can't solve this thing on all the previous levels, they reach Moses, which is the highest degree. So, who and what is a judge? What does he do? The judge, yes. The judge of 10 people is the sum total of 10 opinions that they reach in their inclination to connect with one another up to the point of love, and they see that they can't get along, that they have different problems, that the evil inclination is much stronger than they are, and even though that they understand that they have to fight the evil inclination and everything, that they have to bend it, and together with it, like love covers for all crimes, they have to work together with it on the connection. so that the connection will be greater than the evil inclination that separates them. Suppose they don't understand and don't know how to do it, so they burst out in prayer, and if that doesn't help, then they turn to a higher degree. Suppose the 10 turns to a larger group that's symbolized by 50 groups or 100 groups together, groups meaning tens, and so on and so forth, depending on the level of difficulty that's now burdening them. Okay, so the concept of the judge, it's the 11th person, it's one of the 10, no such thing. So what is it? The judge is the 10 itself that performs a mutual action between them called the judge. So it's not a specific person from the 10. We never talk about an individual person. All of the concepts from this moment and on are only about the 10. And what is that special action it performs called a judge? I understand that there are 10 people, which is the smallest unit, in which people have to connect with one another. Now you say that there's a special action that they can perform called a judge. What is it? The action called a judge is an action where the 10 is undergoing self-scrutiny. It invites the reforming light, which is what? It means that the 10 tries to see its situation the way it's seen from above. From above meaning from the side of bestowal, because probably now they're in the will to receive. If they have disputes, how can they see whether they're adapted to the upper system, how they're arranged towards it, if I understand correctly? If they want to bestow to each other, if they want to bestow to the other 10s, this means that they rise from their state to a higher state. And that means that they arrange themselves correctly towards the upper system. Yes, first of all, they have to be arranged internally inside the group, where everyone arranges themselves towards the others. And the other thing is that when this 10 annuls itself, it has to support the other 10s. So, does it have this kind of inclination? This is something that yet needs another examination. This needs scrutiny and to integrate with higher 10s. If I want to bestow to the others, then first of all I have to take upon myself the deficiencies of the others and to work as the upper towards them. But I can work as the upper towards them only if I'm also as the lower towards them, because only the lower can receive from the upper their problems, their deficiencies, that I integrate with them, that I serve them, accepting anything that bothers them, and then with their desires that I have absorbed from their the deficiencies, the problems, all the different unpleasant things. Then inside my group, out of all of these problems, I create a special deficiency, and I elevate this deficiency to the Creator and ask Him for the powers to correct this deficiency and to bring it back to that group in a corrected state. Okay, now the interaction inside the 10 itself, in the smallest unit of a 10, the interaction inside the 10, that's also influenced by the relationship that the 10 has with other 10s. What's the connection between the relations inside the 10 and the work with the other 10s? If a 10 is uncorrected, it has nowhere to turn to but to the upper force. The moment it's corrected and it wants to advance in its correction, then where will it take additional deficiencies from in order to correct them and ascend? From other tens. So there's stages here. At first, you work with 10 people inside the 10, and only when the 10 goes through a certain process of correction, meaning it doesn't reach the complete correction, but it goes through a certain process of correction, and then it starts working with other 10s. Yes, and furthermore, the measure of correction that it receives, it's in order to take care of others. This is the sole purpose for which it's corrected, for which it gets the ability from above to be corrected, only in order to take care of others. This is the realization of the intention of the 10 to become like the Creator, to be like the Creator, that it relates to the other 10s this way. Only because it lacks the power to correct itself, it gets deficiencies from another 10 and elevates it to the Creator. Meaning any 10 that did some work inside of it and reaches a certain degree of correction influences the other 10s by its correction. Yes, all the 10s that exist in the general system created by the Creator. All the 10s go through the same correction or a different one. Same stages, same corrections, the feeling is different, and every time it looks different. Like in life. Everything repeats itself, but it looks different. Because the will to receive in which we feel the different phenomena, it changes all the time. Up till now we talked about Jethro and Moses and the division into 10. Many years later we have another group of 10 people, the authors of the Zohar. 10 people in the 2nd century AD with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and they're also a special group. They're also 10. So we see that 10 is not something random. It's there all the time. So I want to talk about this group in order to understand the relations that have to exist in the smallest unit called 10. What was so special about this group that they became so famous? Looking at the entire Jewish history, I don't remember a group of people that were more prominent than the authors of the Zohar, these 10. What was so special about them, and what can we learn from them for our laboratory of the 10? Look, we have received the method of the correction of man from Adam Arishon, literally meaning the first Adam. He was the first Kabbalist to reveal the entire system. After him, you have 20 generations of Kabbalists, and then you have Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses, and Aaron, and Joseph, and David. All this up until Rabbi Akiva. This already being the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. And from Rabbi Akiva and on begins the exile. This group of 10 people, the head of which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it's a special group because they realize inside themselves the entire future correction that the world has to go through. That 2,000 years from now and on, there will be 10s like this 10, and they'll want to be like it. And these 10s, they will realize themselves. They will connect and will create amongst them such a measure of connection and love that will bring them to equivalence of form with the Creator, to identify with the Creator. So if I understand what you're saying, the group of the authors of the Zohar, in their interaction, they made a time leap, let's put it this way. They created the connection between them the way it's supposed to be at the end of correction. The perfect connection. Yes.